Hi everybody, this is Brittany with My Design Assistant, just following up on week 3 of trying to go live each week and tell you a little bit about working with a virtual assistant and also a little bit about the collective. So while I'm waiting for people to get on, I just wanted to let you know that we did go live this week for the My Design Assistant Collective. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you should. It'd be awesome. And what that is, it's a opportunity for interior designers to kind of share their experiences, tips, tricks, and also connect with virtual assistants that have some design experience. And there's Marketplace. You can even go in and purchase a package from a virtual assistant right there. And so we're in beta right now, so I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. So like I said, if you get the opportunity, go ahead and check it out, and I'll get started. So today what we're talking about is developing a good working relationship with your virtual assistant. So obviously the hardest part of that typically is that you're not going to have ever met your VA. So sometimes people are lucky, they've met their VA, they know somebody locally, and they've had the opportunity to meet with them and they can meet for coffee every week or so. Majority of the time, of course, that's not going to be the case. So for me, I've probably worked with, I don't know, like 75 interior designers over the course of my business, either doing ongoing projects or maybe just small, like a render here, some sourcing there. And of those, I've only met one of my designers in person. So some of them live down in California. I've got people in Ohio, New Jersey, Tennessee, New York, all over the place, but and one in Portland. But the point of that is most of the time you're not going to have met this person. So how do you go about developing a relationship with somebody that you've never met, or even scarier, handing off your business tasks to somebody that you've never met? So the first thing is understanding their structure. So different VAs can structure their businesses in a variety of ways. Some people will do a retainer fee. And so with that, you would have probably a monthly fee that you would pay. That VA would set aside that time for you. So if they're doing, 15 hours a month, and they've got their calendar, so they're showing you how many hours you have each week, something like that. So you would pay that 15 hours a month, whether or not you use those services, typically. And then that's because typically they're reserving that time for you. They're not giving it to anybody else. And, they're turning away projects as a result of that. Other ways that they do it is maybe doing by packages of service. So I know that there are a lot of designers who will do like SketchUp, for example. And so with that, they'll do like this type of space. The design is this much. So you pay whatever that price is. Sorry, I'm not sure right offhand. And then that'll include a certain amount of revisions. Or like myself, they'll do maybe like a package of 15 hours or 5 hours, whatever it may be. So you're getting either a bulk of service or a bulk of time, but it's not an ongoing commitment. Obviously with that, you just need to understand that the expectation that you have for the VA is a little different. So if they're doing a retainer and they're committing that time to you, that they're going to be there for you, and they're turning away other designers, they're likely going to have a little bit faster turnaround time because they aren't taking in new projects. They're just waiting for you to bring that project to them. However, like somebody like myself who does a lot of hourly and a lot of package products, I have a little bit longer turnaround time because typically that's about a week, I would suggest to most people, because I'm taking those projects in kind of first come, first serve. And so that's really great if somebody doesn't have a need for a lot of hours each week, but not great if you're wanting something to be turned around like right away. So that was the next tip, is again, understanding that turnaround time. So a lot of my designers who understand that, of course, I've already expressed that it's about a week, when they get done with a meeting, then they'll just submit that information to me. So they may not need it for a while. They don't have their next meeting for a while, but that way I already have that information. I've already got them on my calendar. That project's already been booked. So then we're not having to worry when it comes down to the wire whether or not they're going to have a render or they're going to have the product sourcing or whatever it may be that they need for that particular project. Next thing is streamlining communication. So I know one of the hardest things or biggest challenges that I've heard from designers is knowing how to hand off the projects, because a lot of times, especially for the solopreneurs, they've been working by themselves for so long that you're not thinking about who's going to be looking at this next and how they're going to interpret the information. So what's helpful for that is if you're not quite ready to hand off tasks, but you're thinking that you're going to be soon, then start thinking about, here and there, adding in more information and taking a second glance at those documents and thinking, if I was never in this space, if I had never been here, I'd never met the client, and I've never had a conversation with these people, would I understand what the expectation is? So I find that that's typically the challenge with a lot of the projects that I get is under communicating. So, it's hard because from a standpoint of having a design background and knowing, if I'm looking at a living room and they're probably going to want a coffee table in there, like a coffee table makes sense, but the designer didn't specify a coffee table, then most often I'm not going to put that in. And the reason being is I don't want to, one, waste your time with adding in elements that I think should be there that maybe you're not trying to represent to the customer. Like maybe you are just trying to show how a sectional fits in that space and you don't need to represent a coffee table at all. Like that's just not what's needed, or maybe it's a multifunctional space, whatever it may be. So I'm not going to add that in there unless a designer says, hey, these are the items that we know are going to go into this room, add these items into the room, and then, fill in the space however you might think, like see whatever else fits in there. Then in that case, I'll add in extra elements. So the point of that is, streamline your communication, really narrow down like what you are trying to convey to the person and try to keep it all in one spot. So that's why I love Basecamp. Is I used to use Gmail for all of my communication, and I would just, keep everything in one thread was my usual goal with that. But what I found is, as you know, projects can last a year or more. So if that's the case, then we have a year of communication and revisions and minor tweaks that get lost in that. So if instead we have it in like Basecamp, which is what I use, then in that case, we can keep all that information in one spot. All of the files are there, all the tasks are there, all the communication, all the edit requests, everything is in that one spot. And so if my designers also want to use that, then they can use that to file all their information for their projects. And then anytime that they need to go back and have me do something, then all their documents are already there, all their notes are already there, things like that. Other ways you can do that, like if you're not a big fan of Basecamp, like I said, I use that for all my designers. But obviously if you have Dropbox and you have all your notes, and then you can just invite somebody to the Dropbox folder and you say, this is what I need you to do. Here's a Dropbox folder and it has all the information. So then you're not recreating all that information and trying to create this brand new folder for a project when you can just have it all in the in the Dropbox folder and then just hand it over and that person has all the information. Caveat on that is sometimes it is a lot of information. So you might want to give some tips like, hey, I filed this right here, or these are the items that you need to look at, but they're all filed there. And then that way we're not doing a deep dive into the file and, taking forever to get the project done. And one of the last suggestions I have, and I've kind of already covered this, but feel free to over explain. Like I never take offense if somebody gives me too much information on a project, because that's how I make sure that I'm getting exactly what you need to have done and done correctly. So that helps us to eliminate edits. I'll often get 3D renders, but they won't have the paint color or they won't have the flooring. So maybe you're just trying to show how something fits in the space and you don't have those ideas yet, and that's totally fine. But then if you are wanting to kind of represent your idea to the client, then those are really important things that haven't been passed along. So just keep that in mind. Like if you have anything that you want to see, if you have a vision of the space, then communicate that. And then that also saves us time later on, because maybe you want gray wash floors, but you haven't specified the product. So you're not thinking of submitting that yet. But we can still show that in the render. So then we're already a step ahead of conveying what you're looking for. So I hope that was helpful. I know I kind of went on a tangent here and there, so I'm sorry for that. I have a lot to say. There's a lot on it, but I hope that was helpful, and I'd love to hear your questions. So if you want to email those to me or DM me, that's great. Also, feel free to go to the MDA Collective so you can see what that's all about and let me know how you like that. Thank you. Bye.